5 weeks till my dissertation date, and I've had a really productive couple of days writing my thesis, and I think I'm like quote unquote done with my intro and conclusion chapters, which are really long and bulky, and so it's a lot more than it sounds like. But so if some of you are like, what the heck is a thesis? You are not alone. I was like that. Like, even like coming into this, I'm like, I have no idea what a thesis is. But basically, it's this really long document, like 100 to 200 pages ish usually, summarizing like everything you've done during your PhD journey. So like the past like 5 years or so. And like putting it in the bigger perspective of where things are. So it's not like just your work, like it's not just all your results. I mean, the results is a big section of it, but there's also like this introduction, which is kind of like a review paper, like summarizing all the stuff that's come before. And then the conclusions and perspective sections where you get to talk about like how your work fits into that. So I find that part was actually kind of like fun, because you can really see how your stuff fits into this bigger picture and you really feel kind of like part of things. So that's really cool. And yeah, so I really kind of enjoyed that part. There are parts of writing a thesis that I don't like. Parts of it can actually be kind of fun. And so I want to tell you more about what a thesis is, like what defending a thesis is or whatever. Some tips for writing your thesis that I found helpful, at least, personal things, I guess, including noise canceling headphones, which come in really handy when you're trying to write in a lab full of people trying to purify proteins. You also get kind of jealous of the people trying to purify proteins. But I actually wrote a lot of my thesis during lockdown, which was kind of like a silver lining, I guess, that it was a lot quieter, and I got a lot done. And I'm really grateful that I did all that work like a few months ago or whatever, because it really is saving my butt now when I'm trying to like, I also have some like working on like an article and a journal, like some experiments and stuff, and I have like most of it, I had like most of it already written, and now I'm working on like the polishing and all those little parts and all those like parts in my draft where I put like, what's the word I'm thinking of? So now I have to actually like replace those what's the word I'm thinking of text with like the word that I was thinking of, which I hopefully have found. Sometimes not so much. Okay, but anyway, let's take a look. To note is that the whole like PhD journey is going to vary from place to place, and I'll tell you about what it's like here at Cold Spring Harbor Laboratories, where I am, if anyone's before you ask. But basically, what it entails is different in different places, and between fields is going to be a lot different. So I only can tell you about my experience getting like a biosciences, chemistry PhD here at CHSL. But obviously you'll want to look more into whatever place you're interested in or that sort of thing. But basically, so you enroll when you're a PhD student, then you take classes, you teach, you do lab rotations where you check out different labs. You choose a lab, then you have to pass a qualifying exam, which differs from place to place, but here it's like written and oral defense exam on like a specific topic and your classwork and all of that stuff. Once you pass that, then you're a PhD candidate instead of a student. And although I still just say PhD student most of the time, then you choose your thesis committee. So now we're getting into what actually is a thesis. So basically, so some places your PhD thesis is called a dissertation, and if you do a master's, that's called a thesis, and then sometimes you have like a master's dissertation and a PhD thesis. So basically, people might tell you that you're saying the wrong thing and you should be saying the other thing, but say whatever your school says and say whatever. Anyway, so here I just call it a thesis. And so that's basically the thesis, like the written thesis is like this long document. And I'll tell you more about it in a minute. But when we talk about like defending your thesis, basically you have to like at your defense date or whatever, you give a presentation of your work. So some places it's public, some places like the whole thing's public. Sometimes like here it's like you give a quote unquote public presentation, but it's really just like our family and friends and whoever else is in the lab. So you guys can't like join in or anything. Sorry. But so you give this presentation, and then afterwards is when you actually like defend it. And so thankfully here this is in like closed doors. So what's here is like you have a panel of people, so your thesis committee, that's actually like gonna question and grill you about the work that you did. So this committee, so these people have been like kind of helping you along the way. Like you have here it's like bi-yearly, or what, I hate that word. So it's like twice a year. Where you meet with this committee, and you have to like do a progress report, like a written report, which comes in handy when you're writing your paper and when you're writing your thesis and stuff. And then you also have a to give like an oral presentation to them, and then to do some grilling of you there. And then but at this end is like when you have this big defense. So now they're really going to grill you. And then you also have here, you have like an external examiner, so someplace from a different institution. And they're going to get to grill you too. So anyway, that's what the actual like defense is. And so then if you pass the defense, you are like a doctor or whatever. And so, but you have, sometimes you have to like, it's like a conditional pass or whatever. Like, so the thesis that you turn in, they can request like changes or like that you expand or address some concerns or whatever in there. So you often have to do like revisions. And so then at the end of that, you're like, can graduate or whatever. But yeah, you're technically a doctor before that, I think. I hope. Anyway. So let's talk about what this thesis is that you might be needing to revise. Okay, so basically it's like this massive document that you have to write. And so it seems like super daunting at first, but if you work, and it's gonna take you a while to write it, so start early. And often or start early. So what I did, like for me, I find it a lot easier to like work, like compartmentalize. So write, like take a week or so and just write for that time, and then just do experiments, that sort of thing. Because going back, I find like I'm most productive in like spurts of productivity where I really get like in the zone, and in the flow and stuff. So it's when I'm writing or whatever, I'm able to write, like I was able to write like big chunks of it. And so at first I just kind of like word jumble, like just get words on paper basically. And then later I could like now I'm like working on polishing it more and that sort of thing. And then I'm gonna have my boss or my PI, principal investigator, look over it and see what she wants me to change and that sort of thing before I give it to my whole committee and see what they want me to change, which is hopefully not too much. So I'm trying to do a good job. But anyway, so what's inside it? So it's going to vary from place to place, but you're going to have just like the acknowledgement sections, which I'm saving for last and I'm really excited to do. And then you have like a table of contents and a list of your figures, your tables, your acronyms, and then an introduction. So this is more than like an introduction like that you would normally see in like an article or whatever. Like this is a massive thing. I think mine's like 22 pages, and double spaced though, but still. So it's like a targeted literature review. So like a review article where they like give like an overview of some topic or whatever. But here it's like targeted. Like you want to say like what was already known and like what was missing, and so like what is needed to contribute that your work, how is it going to fit in, and so then you want to actually like put your results. So like how did you fill in the gap? And so this is gonna most of this is going to, a big part of this is going to be like the paper that I'm working on. but you can also put like all of the other stuff that doesn't make it into that published paper, because there's going to be a lot of that too, probably. So yeah, so I have like a couple sections with things that I did, but didn't turn out to be very interesting and that sort of thing, or informative. And so at the time, when you're doing it and you like are going down this avenue and doing these experiments, and then you're like, oh no, like this is useless, like it doesn't tell us anything or whatever. The good news is that you can stick it in your thesis, and the which is means like makes it even more important to like take really good notes along the way, so that your future you will really thank your past you if you take the time to make detailed lab notes, if you spend time to make good progress reports and stuff, because all of that's going to help you when you come to this part. And so I've talked before, I like to, when I'm making, I like to keep, like I make figures along the way when I'm doing my work, even if it's something that is just going to go in my notes. I put like figure legends and that sort of thing, like a little key thing, just describing the conditions, everything. I keep everything like by date, and it makes it really easy to cross-reference and talk about things that you did years ago. So help your future you if you're early on. Then my favorite part is like the conclusions and perspectives. So this is actually really fun to work on. It's like, how does your work fit into the bigger picture? And what's still missing? So at the end of the day, you're doing like this, you're going into a deep dive on a really, really tiny thing often. Although it's like, you think it's the coolest thing in the world, like how does it actually fit into the bigger picture, and why would should other people care about it? And it's here where you actually like realize that your work likely, like if your work actually does like contribute to the field, and you feel like you're actually like really part of things. So that's really awesome, especially for someone like me who has like really low confidence and self-esteem issues. It's like my work actually does fit into things, and it's just really cool to think about, like, so like what's still missing too. So you get to like future directions type things, but you don't have to actually do them. So it's really fun to come up with like potential experiments and that sort of things, because there's really like, although you graduate and like there's an end to your like stay, there's never an end to like all the research that can be done on this topic. So I'm actually like kind of worried about like when I leave, is anyone gonna like take up these things? So hopefully when I have my paper published, then people will see, oh, that's cool, and then try to find the answers to the things that I couldn't or didn't have time to or whatever. And then yeah, so why should anyone care? So yeah, like I love Ego, and I love my work, but I need to convince other people to love it too. And yeah, then you have methods and materials. Another place where it's really helpful to have written those like figure legends and take really good notes along the way. And then your references. So you definitely want to use some sort of reference manager. So I did a post on reference managers. I use Mendeley. Let me see if I can. Yeah, so there's like a Chrome plugin, there's like a desktop, and then there's a web library, word integration. So yeah, I have a post on that if you want to look at that, I'll look to it. Yeah, so it's really easy to add articles like when you're on the page. So if you're doing, whenever like throughout your PhD journey, it's really important that you're like saving the articles that you think you might want to use into this reference manager. So start early, and just like even if you don't think you're gonna actually, you might not use an article, or even if you're just like reading an article or whatever, it's helpful to just like save it just in case, and then you can always find it. Because I spent some time trying to like find articles that I knew I'd read but I didn't know where. So yeah, and Mendeley's like free and easy to use. Another option is like Zotero or Anything, which is heavy. So I'm actually doing my thesis in like LaTeX script, which I did a post on, and like Overleaf, this website makes it really easy, and it's really great for formatting things. But then my PI wants it in a Word document, so I exported it as a PDF and then opened it as a Word document for her. But anyway, I found it's really useful, especially so with like citation managing and stuff. So you can also customize it for whatever your school says you need to have. So basically, yeah. So along the way, remember that you to not like that those like potential bad, or not bad, but just like not, if something doesn't fit into the story you're currently telling, it can still go into your thesis, and it might fit into the bigger story at the end when you realize things. And then yeah, so before, like when you're along the way or whatever, it's good to, like, if you're saying like something's dead end, whatever, try to get a good figure, make a good figure about why you moved on from it, so you don't have to like go back and try to repeat an experiment that you abandoned for a reason. Yeah, save multiple drafts. Put dates in the file names. I find that really helpful. And use underscores instead of spaces in file names to help the software programs not get confused. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about in terms of making like figures, saving them. So I do all of that in Adobe Illustrator. A free option is Inkscape. Yeah, and then like use your reference manager. I also have posts on this and stuff where you can like unpaywall to get free papers. Site. I really like this site software to help you with the like figuring out where if papers were cited by other places, like Cite. Oh my god, it's like helping me amazingly, and I'm really honestly not paid by them, but I just find it really helpful because it allows you to see where articles have been cited and what context, so you can see like were they just using like the paper like methods or something, was it positive, negative, whatever. So yeah, check that out. They have a free version, then there's like a paid version, so our institution subscribes, but you can do a lot with the free version as well. I also use PubPeer, which is really good to make sure that it's like, often if people are like suspicious about something in a paper, they'll put a comment on PubPeer so that you can see if things have comments on PubPeer. And yeah, so reference manager system. So I talked about Mendeley, and I have yeah, it's really great. I have a whole post on the citation managers or whatever, but if you want to learn more about how to use it and how to do things with the LaTeX in it, although I'm not an expert, but just I made it work for me. Okay, so yeah, now it's back to the thesis. Those blog articles that I will put links to. So there's like more about the PhD pathway, more about like what a thesis is, more tips for writing thesis, and like reference manager software. So yeah, so you can find all of that on my blog, and I'll put links for you. And yeah, so hope this helps someone.